we're not talking about reality. Nothing that you're
No,
saying. You're not
so
even conceptually in the ballpark of
they
reality. I'm
wouldn't
not even
even,
asking for
they wouldn't
studies.
even. Hey, how are you, Vaush?
I am doing Oakley Dokley. How about yourself?
I am going to come out and say it is that I'm like really excited and nervous because like I've been watching you for like a couple of years and I've always loved your debates, especially against tankies, and it's just like crazy to be on here. I wanted to say that just right off the bat, I have some disagreements with you on like anarchism, specifically like market socialism and free market systems, and like how you advocate for like universal health care. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
I also wanted to try to maybe discuss some of the things you said about like private regulation with Demon Mama. Like, oh god, I have no idea how long ago that was. Just like maybe have a discussion, that'd be great. So if you could maybe just like outline your position, like on why you support uh, universal health care or like single payer system, or like what exactly it is you
What is your
support here.
what is your political ideology again?
Oh boy. We're just gonna keep it at market anarchist. I mostly identify with like free market systems, like
So,
abolition of.
and cap?
Uh no, I don't think that anarcho-capitalism is. I don't think it's like I think it's self-contradictory because the Lockean conception of property rights says that like transformative, it's theory stuff, says that transformative labor is what is required to create property, and then if you go through the whole process of like how anarcho-capital or like capitalism works, the organization of property under capitalism leads to a contradiction in the entire principles of property itself, which is from Proudhon.
All right,
So
no ANCAP could ever give an answer that protracted. Okay, gotcha. You've proved you're not one. Sorry, pulling your leg a little. What specific things would you like me to answer for?
I would just like how, like, if you're like a libertarian socialist or like a libertarian in general, why do you often argue for like statism? Like, like, why would you say that it's better, for example, to have like universal health care where um, it doesn't really solve the problem. It doesn't really like eliminate monopoly that like that is the root of the problem of like why prices are so high for health insurance. It all it really does is spread out the cost. All it really does is take the cost of healthcare. It keeps it monopolized. It keeps intellectual property rights. It still
Because
stops worker.
I
Okay, go
don't
ahead.
I don't like advocating stateless societies as a solution to any problems we face, because all of us will be dead before a stateless society is viable and stable. That is a very long-term goal. Democracy was conceptualized millennia before we actually got something approximating one. I'm okay with that. That's fine. Improvements can still be made. That's life. I do think that stuff can be made in the direction of workers' ownership and decommodification, however. In the case of healthcare, the problem is that healthcare is an inelastic good. A person will pay any amount of money to not die, meaning that the normal forces of market regulation are not very effective at determining a good cost for healthcare. So I'm okay with its decommodification. And decommodification in the context of a stated society usually correlates to state ownership, which I'm very much in favor of.
Okay, so I understand that the demand for healthcare is inelastic, but you can still change healthcare prices by decreasing its scarcity, right? So its demand might not change, but you can do certain policies, right, that don't necessarily mean it's anarchism that will reduce prices of like drastically. For example,
Like price caps.
we could do things like the abolition of intellectual property rights, which will force these companies to compete with each other, reducing the scarcity and the price of the good.
Why
And we
would a
could also add.
pharmaceutical why would a pharmaceutical company ever get on board with the abolition of intellectual property if it meant they could spend billions doing drug trials, and the nanosecond theirs gets FDA approved, every single other company that sells drugs just finds one pill, breaks it down in a lab, and then reproduces it identically.
Okay, why do we care what the companies want though?
Because
Like, aren't we
they're the ones,
socialists?
because in this instance, with a commodified healthcare system, they're the ones producing the drugs. I do, as long as they're the ones producing the drugs, they do need to have an incentive to produce the drugs.
Okay, they still have an incentive to produce the drugs because it's what makes them money, right? Like even if it's a workers cooperative, right? They're still going to have an incentive to produce the drug because that's the service they provide.
Yeah, but they wouldn't want to invest billions into R&D because there would be no return on it. The moment they came out with the drug, after spending billions on it, every other company would immediately replicate that drug identically, and there would be no
Good.
specific return. Okay, yeah,
That would
sure.
reduce
Okay,
prices.
no, but then they wouldn't do R&D because they never get a return on their development. They would all just wait for the other companies to invent these drugs and then copy them immediately after they're produced.
So you don't think that there would be an incentive for people to innovate under this system, but yet you argue for a system that doesn't even have like market forces, which also doesn't really provide an incentive for people to innovate.
Yes, it
Like for
does.
an example, so for well, actually,
Most
let me give
R&D
you.
is done by student researchers and stuff at like universities.
Yes, I work in R&D. I'm a chemist. I work in R&D as a chemical lab technician. Most R&D is conducted by simple workers that are paid money, right? It doesn't really cost too much to just pay a worker to do R&D.
Wait, R&D costs a lot. The
Yes,
full,
depending on the industry.
yeah,
But like
for
a worker,
pharmaceuticals.
most workers are the ones that come up with R&D, right? Like
Yes, but it
it's not like
costs
the
a lot.
capitalist. Okay, but like I don't see why that matters when they make a lot, right? Like because in this society where like the maximization of competition within a labor market brings the product of brings the what are we going to call this? The worker's wage up.
But
It's
none of
the
these companies would want to
labor.
spend the billions for no return. There's no reason for any private company to invest money in R&D if there's a guarantee that it would immediately be copied by every other R&D
So
or
so
every
are
other
you
pharma company.
so are you arguing in favor of intellectual property rights then?
In the context of a privatized market, yes, but I want a decommodified pharmaceutical system, in which case it would be
So
irrelevant.
so it wouldn't necessarily be like private ownership, right? These would be worker cooperatives, right? We're not talking like it's going to be and we
They're
would
still
have
motivated
like
by profit.
profit is absorbed by wages.
Yeah, but and they get more wages if they make a return. If they spend billions on R&D, that's billions coming out of a worker cooperative's budget. Any market-based entity needs a market incentive in order for them to invest in the development of a new product, which is why I want this to be done in a decommodified fashion by the government, because the government has different incentives for producing pharmaceutical goods. Historically, the government has spent a lot of money on R&D because it can. The government invests because it has adjacent military projects that it wants to, build up, or because there are just government researchers who get money and they can just use that to do R&D. But the government gets its money not from selling products, but from taxes, meaning that you don't have to worry about like restrictive IP access to the things produced through government research. They'll just do stuff on their own.
So, okay, wait. So you're saying that you would prefer a system where the government, right, takes money from people's work, like the value of their labor, right, uses it to
Taxes.
fund, yeah, which is exploitation, and
I
then
don't think
uses it.
taxes are exploitation.
How so? It's extraction from one's labor value.
Because taxes are how we have society, and I like society.
Okay, well, define exploitation.
I Exploitation has a definitively negative context. There are implicit bits of exploitation in all forms of extraction and transaction. When I'm talking about like taxes aren't exploitation, I mean you're not getting a raw deal. Taxes are good. a non
I, I
not
would argue that
the non
taxes are theft.
I don't really care if they're I don't care. They're a good thing. I'm glad they happen. The absence of taxes means the absence of society. And the absence of society means like ooga booga, warlord, rape everyone. So I'm okay with the taxes being around. Even like a non-stated anarchist government would have to do something along the lines of collecting a tax or tax equivalent. I don't think you can get around that.
So why do you think that people can't organize society in such a way to where well back okay anyways back to the healthcare example. I would like to talk about a healthcare system that existed previously, like they're called friendship societies, right? And it was more based on a free market system that had more cooperative based, consumer cooperative based solutions for insurance, right? Why is it that now a worker, right, had to pay. Now they have to pay. Back then, a single day of wage for a worker, I could provide the study, a single day working of a worker's wage just for a single day of working was able to provide them for an entire year's worth of full coverage health care for friendship societies, because they basically formed like basically what's called a consumer cooperative. But now it's like I think nobody would argue that any worker could ever possibly pay um, for their entire years of health insurance with just a single days of wage.
I don't think this is a relevant argument. You're talking about completely incomparable factors. Not only am I not familiar with the specific ways in which healthcare was accommodated by these programs, I don't know what they
Well,
could or couldn't do. I don't know the limits. I don't know what the weights were. I like there's nothing for me to derive here. And
they were
it's
organized.
also irrelevant to the point that was being made, which is about the incentive for innovation in the healthcare industry. And I was saying that IP laws are necessary in order for private investment to be a worthwhile endeavor, but public investment happens without IP restrictions. The government doesn't maintain intellectual property rights over the products of its research. Not usually, certainly not for a lot of the pharmaceutical stuff that they've done. So given that, it makes sense that it would be best left to the government as a decommodified force.
So okay, so you're saying that it requires private investment in order to do R&D, right? Well, there's a difference between like how banking systems would work, which would not really require private investment to be necessary in a mutualist society where there is easy access to free credit through consumer cooperative banking.
What? No. Why would a private company spend billions on R&D if they will get no return on that? It would be nothing but a loss to them. It would be a rationally incorrect decision to make.
I don't see how they wouldn't get a return on creating a product to sell to the market.
Because
They
the
would
same
it would get them wages. It wouldn't be like a loss, right? Because all wages are absorbed by profit. If they spend on R&D and come up with a new profit, or come up with a new product, not profit, my sorry, come up with a new product and they sell it on the market, even if it's replicated by their competitors, it still is going to generate them wages.
because
And the
then
natural, and I'm arguing, right, that I'm arguing that way that labor's true value is its natural wage,
wait,
right?
wait,
So
look away from the theory book for a second. We implemented IP laws for a reason. We're not talking theory. This is a fact. Intellectual property laws exist for a reason. Private companies are not willing to take a risk with no guarantee of return, even if they're worker owned. That's just a fact of private ownership. The best thing for them to do would simply be to wait for another company to do the R&D and then to yoink that formula after they get it passed through the FDA. That would keep them from spending billions that would otherwise
there
have gone to wages. It's
there
rationally
there
better.
wouldn't be an FDA.
Okay,
There would be consumer audits, right?
that was not
Consumer
relevant to the point that I was making, though. The point that I'm
No, but I
making
was
is
just
why there'd be no reason for them to engage in the R&D.
okay. The reason that they would engage in R&D is because it would add, um, if you come up with a new product, even if it was yoinked, right? They're still going to make wages from that work, right? They're still going to make wages from doing the work of research and development.
If
There's
you think
still
that's how
going to be
worker
a return.
if
There's
you think
still going to be a return.
if you think that's how wait, where do you think the money comes from in the wages they pay? If they're spending money on R&D, that means they're directing resources away from the production scheme for the pharmaceuticals they sell towards research, meaning that money is being taken from the pool of money that they could otherwise put towards wages. Otherwise, you could have worker cooperatives that literally are just like in a building where 5 people work on doing nothing and they all get paid because the wages come from the company anyway. So if they lose money, the money's just lost in the wages given to the 5 workers who are hitting their hands with hammers.
Okay, wait, say that again.
The money needs to come from somewhere else. If they're dedicating resources towards R&D, they're not getting money in from customers buying their products. That money isn't being spent in an effort to facilitate the supply line. It's being spent on R&D.
Okay, I don't see how spending money on R&D that's going to produce a product that you can sell on the market is problematic to the workers cooperative.
Because
They
they
can
lose the
spend a
money.
portion. They're not going to lose the money. They're going to be able to sell the product for a wage. It's going to be a new product that they can sell, even if other corporations are going to sell the product.
Then why not just wait for one of them to do the billions on R&D and steal the product after they make it?
So I don't think it's going to be like one firm is going to be spending billions on R&D, because it's going to be more decentralized than giant, massive corporations.
No.
Because there's going to be smaller firm size due to increased competition.
No. There's a reason we have IP laws. Why are you so opposed to just decommodifying this?
So I don't think that using taxes to pay for healthcare decommodifies anything, because healthcare companies are still private companies. They're selling you a product, and the prices are drastically inflated, and it doesn't solve the problem of monopoly price. It just spreads the cost of the monopoly price out through taxes. It
When I
doesn't
say
solve the
when I
actual
say
problem.
decommodify, I don't mean government public option. I mean they own the healthcare industry. The hospitals, the doctors, healthcare.
Yeah. No. Yes. I think that healthcare should be worker owned.
No,
Healthcare
no,
workers cooperatives.
state owned. Because market incentives don't work when the product that you're selling is inelastic in price.
I don't think that it's inelastic in price just because the demand is inelastic. When you change scarcity, it's still going to affect the prices.
No, it's not.
You can, if you, okay, so
They can
let's say
charge whatever they want.
if there's if there's an infinite demand, right? If there's one company, if there's one healthcare company, right, and this company is given a patent over X drug, now they can charge whatever they want, because you need that drug, right? You're forced. You will pay anything to not die, as you said earlier. However, if there's 50 trillion other companies providing you with the exact same drug that you need to not die, they can no longer charge you anything, because
Okay.
if one company says I'm going to charge you $8,000, the other one says I'm going to charge you 5,000, and
Okay,
then the other one says
wait.
I'll do it for 4,000.
We both live in a capitalist society. Do you see that happening often?
No,
Overpriced commodities getting
because
undercut by competitors?
absolutely not, because there's things like intellectual property rights that allow for monopolies to form, and other regulations. Hold on,
Hold on. That's a separate thing. Intellectual property rights have nothing to do with what you're talking about right now. Even if you're just talking about like the price of insulin itself, which is theoretically like manufacturable and sellable by anyone, why are our costs so much higher than other countries? You're doing the ANCAP thing right now. We need more market competition and that'll drive all the prices down. No, it doesn't. Also, market economies are driven towards monopoly not through IP laws, but through the nature of capital itself. Even if you had, listen, we didn't have IP laws in the form that we currently do for a long time. Was this a great time for the consumer? No. Corporations still raped everyone they could, because at the end of the day, the problem here is the incentive structures associated with capital. You can't fix that by facilitating better like, there are so many issues here. There's the economy of scale, the fact that the larger companies are already going to have the power to produce things for cheap and then undercut their competitors. And then after their competitors go out of business, they raise the prices back up to the median. The exact same thing that Uber did to kill the taxi industry here in America. Like, these are.
Vaush, I understand how barriers of entry cause monopolization. And almost every barrier of entry that causes monopolization can be attributed to government regulation.
Okay, you are an ANCAP, just so you know. These are ANCAP arguments. Everything that you've
Eh,
said is an ANCAP argument.
This is something I share in common with anarcho-capitalists, but I am not an ANCAP because I do not believe free market systems will lead to a capitalist society. As I said
So
earlier,
you're
I
just a
don't think
socialist ANCAP. You just think that you can do ANCAP, but it's actually socialism.
um, it wouldn't be capitalist because the workers would own the means of production, and
Okay,
it would be a classless society.
so you're just a delusional ANCAP then. You're actually worse than
So,
them. With
so,
all respect, like
so let's go. Hold on,
your
Vosh,
ideological prescriptions.
Vosh.
Wait, hold on. What you're advocating for,
I would like to go
wait,
back
please,
to what I
please.
was talking
What you're
about.
advocating for is like it's like the insult people they do to me when they're like oh, Vaush is a market socialist, so he wants a like ANCAP society except worker owned. Like, but you're doing that unironically, like you're doing the straw man.
Unironically, yes, yes. So I want to go back to what I was discussing earlier when you were saying that. Shit, I don't even remember now because we moved off the point. It was about how, okay, yeah, how monopolization occurs, right? How you were saying that a business will lower their prices. A business that has the advantage will lower their prices to undercut a smaller business that, right? So this business has monopolization in the first place because of certain laws. Like, for example, we can use healthcare for an example again, right? There's other laws, for example, that allow, like for example, if I wanted to purchase healthcare in Ohio, I live in Pennsylvania. If I wanted to purchase healthcare from a provider in Ohio that sells it for cheaper, just because I want a cheaper healthcare, right? As a consumer, I can't do that. There's laws that prevent me from doing that. That reduces competition and
Okay,
allows
look, can I
these
ask you something?
companies to grow bigger and undercut smaller companies.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say that we live in your society and I want to start a new cooperative business. I work together with a couple of my friends and I start together and I make a, let's say, I don't know, tampon manufacturing business. It's a health service. People need that. You know, you can find that at a department store or anywhere else, really. Okay. And we start producing those. Things are highly decentralized and localized. And there are no IP laws. Everyone knows how we produce them. Anyone can produce them, but we're quick, clever, and we have a good bit of initial startup funding. And what we do is we grow, and eventually we start to make preferential deals with local retailers. We say to them, hey, we will sell our bulk product to you at a lower cost on the condition that you A, charge less for it, and B, only stock our tampons. Don't stock other companies' tampons production, only ours. This is a transactional, non-state involved, interaction. And because we're offering a better bulk price on the tampons we're selling them, a lot of these retailers go along with it, and we make a lot of money. Eventually, we're the only company in the city that's actually able to sell our tampons there because we've made deals with all the retailers to only stock our product, city to city, province to province, former nation to former nation. Through no state intervention and no intellectual property laws, we were able to become a monopoly. We were able to take advantage
Bosh.
of the scale of economy to build bigger and better factories. Other companies may produce the same product, but they don't have the ability to produce it as cheaply as we can, which means that we're already at an advantage when it comes to production, not even in terms of investment. Eventually, only we produce the tampons anywhere, and then we raise the price. What the fuck are
And
they going
somebody
to do?
else, and then somebody else enters the market and fills the monopolized part there. You
Yeah,
monopolize it,
that's
right?
what's
You
happened
start charging a bigger,
historically.
you start charging a larger price. Somebody else, because there's no barriers of entry, they go to the mutual
Wait,
bank that they're a member of.
they can't
They take a,
charge a
they take
lower
a,
price.
they can, because they go to the mutual bank. They get a free credit loan. They start up their own, and then they open their own tampon business
These
and
new
are able
business owners,
to
these new
charge
business
lower
owners
prices.
sell a tampon at loss. Do you know how expensive it is to produce a tampon?
It's not going to be at a
I could produce
loss.
a tampon for 1/100th of a cent. You would be paying 100 times that for every point of production, and I have pre-existing deals with all of the retailers in the world. You really think some little startup? Who are you going to sell to? You really think that these local retailers that make a lot of money stocking our tampons with our preferential deals are going to break a negotiation they made with us just so some little pithy
Consumers,
inferior product?
consumers are not going to buy your product if its price is ridiculously inflated compared to a competitor that can provide a just as good as a quality of a tampon for a much lower price.
You
They're
can't
not going
produce
to
a
buy it.
lower
They're
price
not
tampon.
going to buy it.
You can't produce.
What is
Wait,
stopping me
wait,
from?
please,
Hold
please,
on,
please.
hold on,
Wait,
hold on.
no. Wait, can I
Wait a
ask you
minute.
an honest question? Wait, can I ask you an honest
What
question?
is
Wait,
no?
wait,
Can I
please,
finish?
please.
You're
You were
interrupting, and I would like to finish my sentence.
you were lying to me when you said you do R&D. How old are you?
No, no, I'm not. I'm 24. I have a child.
I am begging you to do literally any research on the accumulation of capital and natural monopolization. Any research at all. Once you establish a sufficient lead in the productive economy, once you are able to benefit sufficiently from the economy of scale, you could produce tampons cheaper than any startup ever could while still inflating the price massively from what you could afford to be charging for it. You could be charging like $1 for a tampon box when you could be charging 10 cents, and you would have to charge $3 just because you don't have massive hyper efficient factories. The math is impossible and impregnable. The solution? A central government to break up the monopoly. We need Taft-Hartley. We need Roosevelt. They need to come on over. They need to hang some people, shoot some people, break up the free market, maybe nationalize a few industries. It's the only way forward.
So the solution to monopoly is to create a one big monopoly. So this is the thing is right is
Wait,
that
the
you're
government
talking
doesn't have
about
a monopoly.
it's a monopoly. If you want to nationalize an industry, it's a singular monopoly. So I want to actually address what you
Wait,
said earlier about no. Let me address what
monopolies are
you
a
just
market
said, please.
factor. If it's decommodified, it would take an entirely different.
It doesn't have to be a market to be a monopoly.
I think
If
generally when people
it's
talk
just
about monopolies, they mean like
it's irrelevant. I would like to talk about how you said that if you get a drastic lead, right? Yes, sure, that's true if you have a nationalized bank system where there's lots of barriers of entry to, take out loans and stuff.
I didn't
But in
mention
a
any nationalized bank system. Nothing that I said relied on any
no,
type of banking.
but it's a no, but it's a factor in why. Like national banks, like the fact that it's hard to start up a company and to get that you were talking about how I can't produce the product as efficiently because I don't have efficient factories, right? The reason I can't get those efficient factories is because I can't secure a loan because national banking is discriminatory and you have to have a bunch of previously
No
already
bank is
obtained
going to loan you
capital.
the
You
capital to build a factory because you're doing a
there will
startup.
be mutual cooperative banking in a mutualist society that is able to provide people free and easy credit.
Just
And it
$30
wouldn't
million
even
for
technically
a
be a loan.
factory?
Likely, yeah. If
Really?
you're a member of the cooperative,
With
it's
respect,
like you're
with
literally
respect,
you can.
this is like I'm arguing the logic of like Alice in Fairyland or whatever, or like there's not like this is ridiculous, right? This is like I don't even like discussing like post-state political systems, and this is more delusional than most of the shit.
So Vaush, can I ask you a question about your system? About okay,
Since my system can exist, I would like it if we can move to
okay,
that. Yes.
okay, yeah. So let's say we have single payer healthcare system, right? And
That's not full decommodification, but yeah, sure, as an intermediary.
Okay, so now workers, right? They have the workers of like healthcare, right? They're going to get paid no matter what, right? They're the only service in town, right? They're like you are going to go to them no matter what because you are forced to pay for them because the government pays for them with your taxes. They take your taxes out. They pay for the service, right? So they don't really have an incentive to do a better job or provide a quality service because you're forced to pay for them no matter what. Even if they provide a crap service, you're going to end up paying for them no matter what. So they don't really have any incentive to do the best job that they can. Furthermore,
Then
this
why
is the
is
same.
then why is so much
Further,
pharmaceutical R&D done by the state? What incentive is driving them to do the research?
so workers are paid a wage to do the research, right?
Why don't they just
But
not do it? There's no market incentive.
it's not about market incentive. It's
So yeah,
about
so why are they doing it? Why do government researchers do so much research with no market incentive? You're saying right now, like without a market
it
incentive,
is a market of incentive. They're being paid. They're being paid to do it by the
so are the
government. That's why
healthcare
those
workers.
research. Okay, but they're never going to be losing their money, right? They're never going to be losing that. They will. They have no fear of. They have no fear of losing their their ability to work at those places
Neither do the
or
researchers.
to go out of business or to go out of business
Neither do the
so they
researchers.
don't
But they still produce so much
I
research.
think it's a little bit different because I don't think healthcare or like just doing research is the same thing because scientists are usually passionate, but somebody who's just
But
like a
not
nurse,
doctors.
I don't think that they're going to. It's not going to be the same thing, right? They don't
Why
really
not?
need because they don't really need to provide a quality service. They
Not
don't.
wait, and
They
the
don't.
researchers don't have to do
So
research.
it's like the same thing with the cops, right? Because you're forced to pay for the cops, they can fuck around and do
I don't
whatever they want.
I don't understand at all. We pay people to do
So
government research. We pay theoretically in a single payer or decommodified healthcare system. We pay them to provide medical care. In both cases, they are not being subjected to market incentives to operate as a business. There are still, however, individual incentives within that institution. Bad researchers and bad doctors get fired, after all. And despite there not being an external market pressure on research and development done within state actors, they still do a lot of good. Way more good than private companies are capable of, because private companies aren't willing to take massive risks, whereas the researchers that work for the government just get giant fucking grant paychecks to research whatever they want. Usually ends up doing cooler stuff than the risk-averse companies. So in both cases, it seems like even though they're not like at risk of losing their business or whatever, they work just fine. You would understand this if you understood Marxism, because the individual drive for a doctor or researcher to do well is not directly connected to the drives of a business. A business may act in its own self-interest in ways that do not benefit the doctor or the patient, but the doctor's self-interest, if they are fired for performing poorly, is to do well for the patient, with or without a market incentive. Unless you add market incentives externally, like the encouragement from pharmaceutical companies to like over recommend opiates for pain, but that's the influence of the free market at hand. The government doesn't do that. The government doesn't tell doctors like, hey, provide opiates for everyone who gets an ankle sprain. That's them doing it. So in both cases, it's fine. Decommodification leads to effective, productive workers. You just have to make sure these institutions are run well, but that's the case with like everything, right?
so you're saying that, for example, if all the workers are going to get paid, even if they're not providing the best service, they're still going to do their best job.
Do
I
all
don't see
Starbucks
why.
workers provide the best service, even though they work in a system that is a market business? Because I go to Starbucks and there are people there, you know, being real lazy. I don't know.
It's probably because they're not paid very well.
Well, that's interesting. Despite wait, so then would not private
Capitalism, it
so
exploits people.
wouldn't private
Very interesting.
yes, it is interesting, said the capitalist. The yeah, so I don't see the point then. If you decommodify these systems, they'll work fine. I mean, Cuba exports doctors. Their system is decommodified mostly. It's not perfect. They have got pretty good healthcare outcomes considering the, state of their economy. They're not the wealthiest country, but they do pretty well.
So I wanted to go back to where you're saying that even though, right, that so you're saying that the pressure is still going to be on the individual workers, for example, to provide a good service, even though it might not be on the business, because the healthcare like system, right, is still providing a service to consumers. Like it's still it's still, how do I say this? It's still like uh it is hard to say. It's still like being pressured by like market forces, even though it's not like a market, right? Like because consumers are still going to demand healthcare and are still going to demand the best quality healthcare they can get, right? For the cheapest price they can get it
They're
at.
not they're not paying any
But
price.
no, they are. They're paying taxes, right? It's
They're
not
not
free. It's not like the doctors are working for free, right? They are paying for it. It's just not the individual consumer paying for it, right?
Yes, so they're not
They're
paying
paying
anything.
for it. No, they are. They're
No,
paying for it in
they're paying
taxes.
taxes. They don't pay anything to the
They're
hospital.
paying for it.
Yes, but they're not paying to the
Okay,
hospital. They don't decide how
Vosh,
much money goes to the
where do those
hospital.
where do those taxes go?
To the government, which allocates it in
Which
congressional
and then
budget meetings.
where does the government send it to?
The,
Healthcare, right? So their
yes,
taxes are indeed going to pay for healthcare.
but
So
they're not
they're
paying the
still paying for,
hospitals.
they are paying the hospitals through their taxes,
Okay,
Vosh.
let me try this again. Okay, hold on. Have you paid taxes ever in your life?
Yes.
Okay, there's a woman named Susan who lives in Philadelphia. Last year, she received $800 as part of a government welfare program. Have you ever paid Susan any money? Your taxes went to her.
Maybe like a very tiny
You
percent.
paid her. So if someone was like, "Oh yeah, you gave Susan money," like that's like a semantically correct statement to you. You don't think there's any like
But
meaningful
Vosh,
difference between a direct payment and it going through taxes and being distributed through a political process?
Vosh, the money comes from people, right? It comes from the people that are consuming the healthcare, right? The people that are consuming the healthcare are the ones paying the taxes that goes to the
I'm
healthcare.
aware
They
that
are,
it takes money to
yes,
run things,
I know you're aware. You're a smart guy. So they're still paying for it.
but
It
they're not
doesn't mean
paying to. I'm aware. We
okay.
know. We
Yes,
understand.
we
I'm only
agree. We agree.
indicating the
They're not.
difference between these two things. There's a
They're.
big difference.
I understand the difference, but what I'm telling you is that it's not free, right? The labor. I know you know this. The labor of the hospital workers must be compensated somehow. So what you were saying was that the individual worker has an incentive to provide the best care that they can because of if they don't, they'll get fired. But also, I
That's the
would like
case in
to say,
all businesses. If a worker does poorly, they risk being fired.
okay, so I'm saying that the consumers are still asking for, right, the best quality service for the cheapest price they can get. Now, if the
But they're
government
not.
is
Okay,
hold
that
on,
doesn't
hold
work.
on. I didn't finish my point. If the government is arbitrarily deciding how much of those taxes is going to go to the healthcare system,
How
right?
is it arbitrary?
Because it's not based on consumer demand or based on scarcity of the product.
It's it's based on the
It's based
expense of
upon
running the system.
what some politicians decided how much funding they wanted to put
No,
towards.
it's based on the expense of the system. So you would do calculations on how much you'd have to pay in wages, equipment, upkeep, contracting, all the stuff that goes into running an industry, the same as a business would. And then Congress gets presented that budget and they vote in it. It's the same with all government institutions. It's not a
So
blank check.
Vosh,
It's not funny money.
so this is going to lead to exploitation of the healthcare workers because you're saying that the government is arbitrarily deciding
Did
how
not
much
say
in
arbitrarily.
wages they're going to decide, right? They're going to make a decision on how much of those is going to be allocated towards the wages of the healthcare workers. Well, I'm going to argue with you that
It is true
hold on,
that
hold on, hold on.
business
Hold
owners
on.
set the wages for the people in that
Yes,
business.
and the government, being the business owner, is setting the wages for the healthcare workers, which means that the wages of those healthcare workers is not going to be equivalent to the product of their labor, right? So
What?
I argue, right, that labor's natural, like the value of labor is its natural wage, right? And this is not going to be able to
What the fuck
give
is a natural wage?
a natural wage is labor's product, right? The product,
No.
whatever the value of the product, yeah, whatever the value of the product that labor creates is the value of the labor.
You can't. No,
Marx,
I don't want to.
this is
No,
related to
no,
Marx's
no,
views.
no. I don't want to get into this. We're not doing this. How do you arbitrarily calculate the value of providing healthcare? I don't want to get into this.
So no, hold on. So what I'm saying is that this is going to lead to the labor exploitation of the workers in
Yeah,
the
it's a
healthcare
market
system
economy.
because no, this is your system of decommodified healthcare. It's
Yes,
going
it's
to
still
lead.
exploitative.
Which is a problem,
Yeah, it's
right?
still a stated society with currency. A
Okay,
market economy has a currency. Yes, it's still exploitative.
and I'm arguing for a system that doesn't have exploitation,
No, you're not. You're literally
where
arguing
the
for
nat
anarcho-capitalism.
where the natural wage of healthcare workers is going to be the product of
Okay,
their labor
gotcha.
that is going to be paid for by consumers who decide
What
what it
what
is,
what
right?
have you read or who have you watched to create this effect in your brain that has led you to this?
So I've
I
read
know it's
some
not
Benjamin.
Demon Mama, because you mentioned Demon Mama, and Demon Mama would not agree with any of this shit, so I have no idea.
No. That's a separate topic about how there can't be any private regulation. How
Oh
that
yeah,
is impossible.
yeah, I can't wait to hear your opinions on like producing bathtub insulin and getting
Oh
it
no,
vetted by like the
no,
local
no.
workers board of drug addicts.
No, I support supply chains, Vaush. So I think Demon Mama was off her rocker when she was saying that supply chains wouldn't exist in anarchism
I would rather
because
that version of anarchism than this one. This is just anarcho-capitalism.
it would not lead to capitalism. It
Hey,
would
quick
lead
question. How
to
do you ensure that all these companies remain worker-owned if there's no state mandating it?
well, because you're going to hate this one. The maximization within a labor market causes the cost of labor to rise to the price of its product, which gives workers cooperatives a massive advantage within labor markets over exploitative firms, which allows them to always outcompete capitalistic firms.
What if capitalistic firms work together to stifle non-capitalistic businesses um,
I
through
said labor
price
market,
price
correct? I said
fixing?
labor market. So a labor market is about where the workers decide they want to work. Ain't no worker going to want to work for a place that isn't going to be able to provide labor's full product
Yeah,
when there's a place down the street that can.
yeah, it will if all the worker cooperatives are completely out of business because they get muscled out of local industry by capitalists who know it's in their best material interest to prevent worker cooperatives from spreading. If this was the case, then why have capitalist
How are they gonna do
businesses?
that?
They
Vosh,
can
how are
do
they gonna do
anything they want. There's no state.
that? So can cooperatives, right?
No, there needs to be a state.
Why, Vosh? So why did
Okay,
okay,
why?
you were
Okay, I
talking
form a
wait, you were
company.
talking
I do really
so
well,
you
and
were
there are
so
4,000
hold on,
employees. I give them
Vosh.
all guns. We run this town now.
Vosh, in your last debate, you told that guy that you were an anarchist, and in your debate with me, you're saying there needs to be a state. Vosh, you're
Just
not an
wait, hold on.
anarchist.
Just because retarded and anarchist share a couple of vowels doesn't mean they mean the same thing, all right? The statelessness comes after the abolition of capital. You want to keep the capital, okay? That's the problem. Statelessness is fine. You just want you just have this delusional belief that you can preserve the monopoly of violence through a bunch of sparsely distributed, decentralized corporations. What's to stop a larger corporation from just buying up a bunch of guns and becoming warlords in their town? It would certainly save them a lot on production prices to own slaves, wouldn't it? They wouldn't have to pay wages. Who's going to stop them?
Uh, People aren't gonna like that.
Oh, they won't. Well, that's a
If you
great
just go
argument
around,
except Bullet.
yeah, you know who else has bullets? Other people. The
Not as
decentralization
many.
of violence. How do you know that?
Because the
Like how?
corporation spent time training and arming 40,000 people in a city. It's a
So
private
did other
army.
people.
Wait,
Well,
so a
it's
bunch of
not like a
corporations
private.
have private armies that they're all just like gunning for?
I don't think that would happen, Blush. I don't
Wait,
think
it
that.
has happened. What we're talking about right now, as in
But
lawless
these
territories
systems were
being
never
taken over by warlords.
those systems were never like stateless, right? They've always had like
No, the
monopolization
corporation
through
becomes
like
the
certain
state.
laws.
That's true. You are a statist. You just don't call it a state. You just want statism through the power of monopolistic corporations, and you're delusional
I
about the fact that they're
no,
not going to be
I don't
monopolistic.
want monopolies to exist, Vosh. I
It doesn't
don't
matter
want
whether you want them to. You don't know that they're going to happen anyway.
I like I said, like the maximization of competition is going to prevent monopolization.
That's a very Marxist position of you. No, it won't.
I'm not a Marxist.
I'm aware of that. You realize that the history of capital has been the history of the accumulation of capital.
In the entire history of capital, statism has existed.
Yes, I know. And this is the delusional fantasy of every ANCAP, that even though you can't account for or predict any institution or any system within our own, even though you've never contributed anything valuable to any predictive economic discourse, even though Marx, who is more philosopher than economist, has been more predictive in his ability to understand how these systems play out, you still delusionally maintain that if we only got rid of the thing that's been around for as long as we have the written word, then all of the things that have never worked once would suddenly magically work and we'd have utopia. You're worse than the worst socialists that I've talked to when it comes to like post-society idealization. Like, this is the worst iteration of that. Everything you're talking about right now is the opposite of all demonstrated empirical reality, but once you get rid of the thing that has always been around in some form or another, then it'll work. Like, how is anyone supposed to take this seriously? This is
I
the
don't
reason
think
why
Vosh,
fascist
I don't
economists get listened to by governments, but ANCAPs don't. ANCAPs usually inform like private investors, but when governments decide how to like allocate resources, they don't listen to ANCAPs, because the most ANCAPs have ever contributed are the senses of entitlement and self-worth that endows onto like corporate owners their perceived right to exploit workers. Like, that's it. You're a cultural commodity. Like, this isn't like,
hello?
hello?
Yeah, it was cutting out for a minute.
Oh, I'm sure it was. If only if only we didn't have the myriad government institutions that laid the electric cables and maintained standards for network transmissions, then we would have the perfect ANCAP call. Look,
Which could all be done by cooperatives. I
I
don't
know,
see
I'm
why you
sure.
can't.
So wait, again, why can't they just like be a warlord? Why can't like you just have one big company in a town be like, okay, we're gonna make a private army, and then they just do that?
Bosh, there's not going to be one big company in the first place. If you have an anarchist society already established, like if we've already implemented slowly through gradualism towards anarchism and had an anarchist society, there's not going to be a
There
monopoly
will
that can
always
just
be a
do that.
monopoly. Everything you're advocating for maximizes monopoly. Like you're like you're screaming like I'm running from monopoly as you're sprinting towards it head first. You're the
Bosh,
guy in the Marvel movie who says that you hate monopoly, and then you go, he's right behind me, isn't he? Because monopoly is right behind you. Like you are monopoly.
Bosh, I don't think free market systems create monopoly. I think that
I know you don't, because you
monopoly
don't know
all comes
history.
from.
I know you
I
think it
don't
comes
think.
from state
I think
intervention. I know.
almost all of history actually shows that state intervention creates monopoly,
I know, I'm
like
sure.
intellectual property rights, zoning laws, land titles that enable people to own large swaths of land that they
What
didn't
about
even homestead,
wait, what about mercantile colonies? Where
where they were
corporations.
sponsored by the state.
You mean, okay, so they got an investment. Couldn't they have just gone on over on their own? You realize that there were like private corporations that were like militia groups and mercenary groups that would literally just wander to other areas and like take over
Vosh,
places.
since the dawn of capitalism, right, it has always been from the start of the state, right? Initially, after feudalism, there was lands that were owned communally by like, it was like land that was just communal. And what happened was
What if it
like
got taken over?
there was monastic decrees from the government that seized those lands and gave them to previous what do you want to call them lords and gave them private
Okay,
ownership over them.
what if
Like
the
so
lords
now
just seized
instead,
that land themselves? Wait, think for a second. So the lords needed the permission of the state in order for them to own land.
yeah,
Now
the
you've gotten rid.
problem
Wait, wait,
was
wait,
the
wait, wait, wait. Now
centralization
you've
of
gotten rid of.
power in
Wait.
government.
Now
Yeah,
you've
they were
gotten rid.
able to seize
Now
that
you've
land
gotten
because
rid of the state. So we're done. We did it. We did anarchism. Okay, but there's still the lord. Why doesn't he just take the land himself?
If we did anarchism, there wouldn't be a lord.
Okay, by lord, I mean a person with social prominence and power, like a person with a lot of wealth or social capital. Like you get
Okay, this
together a couple hundred guys and you go over to
so
like a small town and you're like, yeah, we're the town now. And then they control that town. Explain to me right now, because I'm getting bored, because this is all fancy, fantastical bullshit. None of this means anything. We might as well be like literally arguing Lord of the Rings lore. But like, tell me, okay? You've got a corporation, worker controlled, of a couple hundred people, all right? And they're doing
okay. Wait,
work in
can
the
you
wait, wait,
please
wait,
say
wait. They're
again what you
doing work in
want
their
me to
they're
explain
doing work.
because
They're
you cut out?
doing work in their city.
Just repeat it.
Okay, so here. They're doing work in a city. This
Hello,
worker, I know you can hear me. I know this is fake.
hello.
This is you're only making that
Oh
noise.
my god.
I know he can hear me.
No, I can now.
Oh, now
Say
you
it
can.
again.
Okay,
No, no, literally just say it again because I will respond to it.
you are the you are on the board of a worker cooperative with a few hundred employees. Work's not doing great. Your business is not doing phenomenally. You take what remains of your money, you sell your industry, you buy weapons, and you move to a small town in Nebraska, population 10,000. A town of 10,000 can be easily conquered by a few hundred people with automatic weapons and armored vehicles. And you do so. There are other businesses there, but they don't have a bunch of guns and armored vehicles. And then you put the population to work as slaves, because it's actually a lot easier to maintain a business when you don't have to pay wages. You now have two kinds of people in your business, slaves and employees. The employees collectively own the profits generated from the labor of the slaves. You are now able to accrue enough wealth through the production that you sell to other towns that you are able to start buying more guns. You hire more people, and eventually your enterprise expands to neighboring towns, eventually cities, and then you have a state, an institution with a monopoly on violence, a border, a sense of common ownership or identity, even if it's just what guy is going to shoot us if we do a bad job. What stops this from happening?
So I remember previously when you were talking with another person about how, right, how like trade relationships, like for example, how you often talk about how trade relationships between China and the United States prevent us from going to war, but because it would be absolutely uh, disadvantageous for it to happen because it would disrupt so many supply chains, right? It would not be advantageous for people to just cause conflict like that. And I don't think
Really?
that
It
the
wouldn't be
town.
economically beneficial to conquer territory? That's the historically informed position you're going to
I mean,
take?
is it economically beneficial for the United States to just go and start a war with,
All right. Let me be
let's
clear.
say,
Let me be clear.
Iraq right now and conquer Iraq?
Let me
We
be
could do
clear.
it.
Let me be clear.
Would it be
Let me be clear.
economically
Let me be clear.
advantageous?
Please. Let me be clear. Okay? The fact that you would compare marauding warlords with intrastate invasions indicates you know nothing about either. You have nothing more than a superficial aesthetic understanding of these ideas if you think there is even a single line to be drawn between them. There are so many things I could say, it could fill a book. There are differences in the level of investment, the level of potential attainment, the startup and operational costs, the fact that the United States has broad trade relations and concerns it has to care about, along with PR, whereas your little marauding warlord band might be willing to not deal with that in exchange for the additional profits generated by slave labor. Who would stop you? You didn't even tell me what would stop them. You just said they wouldn't do it. Well, what if they did? What if they did do it? Who would stop them?
It's unlikely that there isn't like REAs or defensive forces within that
Whose?
community.
Wait, oh, in the town of 10,000,
Nebraska.
they just have like RPGs, like and like oh, the marauding.
Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't they?
What a great world to live in. Oh, a daughter of mine, can you grab the RPG we have under the couch? Another local business has decided to make this town their bitch. The new startup warlord needs to be like strung through the street and like hanged from a local
That
gallows.
that's why it wouldn't be advantageous to do it.
It would be, because they wouldn't win. Historically, very small populations of well-trained militias with a little bit of equipment are able to overtake populations 10, hundreds, thousands of times larger, because that's how it works. Well-organized
So
military groups with radio communication, automatic weapons, and bulletproof vehicles are capable of defending themselves against essentially an infinite number of unprepared civilians who have, like, Taliban-era equipment stashed up.
So, Vaush, let's use the example of Sharon, Mexico, right? So, Sharon, Mexico is a small community in Mexico that is like pretty much anarchist. They didn't like the fact that the Mexican government was going to cut down all their trees and sell it. So, they kicked out all the police, kicked out all the government officials, and created basically an anarchist city state. Now, the Mexican government could have declared war, went in there, completely conquered the area, labeling them separatists, and got all the trees they wanted, but they didn't because they
Because a
realized it
government
wouldn't
has to
be
rely on the
beneficial to
consent.
do it.
Yes, because the government relies on the consent of the governed, and the relative benefit of the territory they would acquire would not be worth the expenditure. Whereas potentially a PR-free private military group could potentially benefit massively from conquering a single town's worth of slave labor. The fact that you're drawing these comparisons indicates that you don't understand what any of the you don't know what the economy is. Like, you don't know
Gosh,
what
why would it be
forces.
beneficial? Why would you assume that they would have the consent of their consumers to just use slave labor? Like what makes you think that
But they
that
don't.
the consumers would consent that
They don't. They
would be
lie about it.
consensual to that?
The militia operates under a completely different trade name, and the business that dissolved to form it, they're two
Okay,
completely separate legal entities.
they don't control the media either. The media is completely controlled by
By
separate by
market
separate
forces.
by by separate cooperative
People
media.
buy Coca-Cola even though they fund death squads.
Furthermore, consumers will. I work in R&D. They do this. Consumers will create private auditing.
Oh my
Private
fucking
like
god.
they will
I
create
know, I know,
private.
I know. All right.
They do.
I
They
think we're
literally
good.
do.
No,
Hold on.
I think we're good. I think we're good. This is the degree of magical thinking here stumps any religious person I've
But
ever.
this literally exists now.
Nothing that I don't even. There's not even like an angle of correction here. It's more like I don't even, man. Like if you see someone who's like a little bit mussed up or something, like they got some dirt on their knee or something, like you notice it, and then it's like, oh, they could clean that, You're like covered in a 6 meter thick layer of coagulated grime. No cleaning, cleaning can't work. You have to start over from the beginning. I'm sorry, you have to re-roll, dude. This is too much. This is way the too much.
So you don't want to talk about how private auditing works?
No, nothing. We're not talking about reality. Nothing that you're
No.
saying. You're not
So
even conceptually in the ballpark of
they
reality. I'm
wouldn't
not even
even.
asking for
They wouldn't
studies.
even. So this is in reality. This happens in reality.
No,
Where I work,
nothing that we're talking about
where
reality.
I work,
None of this is reality.
where
Wait,
where I
we're not
currently
continuing.
work.
I'll click off. I'll give. Do you want to say something affectionate to the audience so we can end on a good note? But this is like, there's no point in talking about this. None of this is related to reality in any way. It's all pure broken ideology. So I can't,
Do you want to end on a good note?
I love you.
That's literally what I was gonna say, and I'm not gonna stop watching your streams.
At least the future anarcho-capitalist warlords who take over cities and rape women to use as slaves, at least they can't take our love away.
They will never do that, and I still think that the maximization of competition in a labor market will prevent monopolization. So
We can only hope. It would be a better world. Godspeed.
all right, I love you.
Love you too. Bye. Wow. Okay. Whew. Oh boy. Sorry. That was so much more insufferable than I thought. It's just like, this is one of the reasons why I don't really like talking about post-state solutions. It's because a lot of people have frankly delusional ideas on what getting rid of the state would do to society. And like, some I agree with and some I don't. I don't know how valuable it is to speculate, but there are some ideas that I think are worse than others.